those weren't so much dates as me trying way too hard to impress you as someone that was mature. Bad word choice, but I don't know what I was doing, and not myself. Anyways, I now realize I need to get this pole out of my ass and start having fun again in my life, which is why I have been in a drunken stupor for the last 2 weekends. I hope we can start hanging out again, because I do enjoy your company, but I promise if we do, I will drink, relax, and not be such a wallflower. I also promise no more gay-ass text messages. I hate when people do that to me, so I can only imagine how retarded I look when I do it. Alan. This was an actual email passed on to me from a young woman I counseled after she blew this guy off over the course of 3 dates. It is one of many emails and IM texts I've gone over time and time again with women. This is a textbook example of how men will resort to self-depreciation tactics in order to provoke an "it's okay, I understand" sympathy response from a woman with the expectation that she'll take pity on him for being a flawed man and give him a second chance, or third, or fourth chance, or any chance at all. This is a direct manifestation of men being socially conditioned to recognize and acknowledge their weaknesses, and in confessing them, they will become strengths, and ergo, attractions, since they mistakenly believe that doing so will make them not like other guys, and therefore unique. You see, I'm really a sensitive, introspective guy willing to cop to his own character flaws. Please love me. Iron Rule of Tomasi number 9. Never self-deprecate under any circumstance. This is a kiss of death that you self-initiate and is the antithesis of the prize mentality. Once you've accepted yourself and presented yourself as a complete douche, there's no going back to confidence with a woman. Never appeal to a woman's sympathies. Her sympathies are given by her own volition, never when they are begged for. Women despise the obligation of sympathy. Nothing kills arousal like pity. Even if you don't seriously consider yourself pathetic, it never serves your best interest to paint yourself as pathetic. Self-depreciation is a misguided tool for the AFC, and not something that would even occur to an alpha. People seem to get confused about how self-deprecation really functions. I'm not suggesting that a man take himself so seriously that he can't laugh at himself. In fact, a brilliant tactic is to present a prevailing, ambient sense of seriousness, then admit to and laugh at whatever goof it was that removes you from it. Nothing endears a man more to a woman than to think only she can break through your shell and get you to find humor in yourself. However, true self-deprecation, as illustrated in Alan's, lowercase a noted, email, is self-initiated. It's not the, haha, look I slipped on a banana peel sense of deprecation. It's the, I'm a complete douche, but really I'm worth the effort, apologetic sense of deprecation. There is a marked difference between being pathetic and being able to laugh at yourself in good faith. I'm not advocating that guys never own up to mistakes or wrongs they do. You should sensibly apologize in given situations depending on the conditions and do so appropriately. However, self-depreciation is another mental schema entirely. Humility is a virtue up to a point, but it's simply not a virtue that a woman you're interested in will ever appreciate in the manner you think they will, and in fact often conveys the opposite intent. Virtuous humility is no substitute for self-confidence. If you are already involved with a woman, she may develop a socially mandated sense of appreciation. But again, this is only up to the threshold of you trading her estimation of your confidence for your ability to address fault on your part. When a woman delivers a shit test based on this, and a guy submits through self-depreciation, it's damage done that's not easily undone. Admitting fault is not a strength that inspires women. It's still about the fault. It may be the honorable, necessary, truthful thing to do, but don't believe for a moment women will value you more in the confession of fault. That said, true self-depreciation is pervasive. Contemporary men have become so steeped in deprecation and male ridicule by popular media that it seems a normative way of attracting women. The message is, women love men who laugh at men. Thus, you have to be hyper-aware of it and unlearn it. You have to catch yourself in mid-sentence, so to speak. Women operate in these sub-communications, and when you overtly admit to a lack of confidence in yourself or your collective gender, you may as well just LJBF yourself. That's a strong impression you won't recover from easily, if ever. Women want a competent, confident, decisive man from the outset, not one whose self-image is that of a complete douche or even a partial douche. The stereotype of the quirky but lovable guy who bumbles his way into a woman's heart may work for romantic comedies, but not in the real world. I should also add that when you become hyper-aware of this, you can also turn it to your own advantage when dealing with a competitor or you're sarging a girl with a self-depreciative boyfriend or suitor. It's all too easy to reinforce her estimation of a guy like this by covertly confirming it for her, while at the same time playing up your own confidence and value. All of this is not to say that it's wrong to recognize your own weaknesses and understanding when you're in the wrong. It's simply how you go about addressing it that's the point. There are plenty of ways to assume the responsibilities of fault that aren't self-depreciating. The easiest way is to always adopt the attitude that you're getting better all the time. This mentality fosters confidence and projects ambition, whereas self-depreciation shoves your nose in the dog shit and says, "Please love me anyway."
Chapter 10, Part 1.
Mythology. The myth of the lonely old man. Is loneliness a disease that necessitates a cure? If men could be made to believe so, think of the potential profit to be made from, and the potential for manipulation of, men. The real test for a man is how he lives with himself, alone. Precious few men ever truly allow themselves to be alone and learn real, singular independence and self-reliance. The vast majority of guys, see betas, particularly in Western culture, tend to transition from mother to wife with little or no intermission between. For the most part, they subscribe to the feminine imperative, becoming serial monogamous going from LTR to LTR until they settle without ever having learned and matured into how to interact as an adult. The fear of loneliness is entirely too exaggerated in modern Western romanticism. The popularized fear mythology of becoming the lonely old man who never loved is the new old maid myth made popular in an era when a woman's worth was dependent upon her marital status, and, at least now, equally as false a premise. But in our brave new Generation AFC, men who've become women are repackaged and shamed into believing this horseshit as part and parcel of feminized gender role reversal. Thus, we get speed dating and eHarmony and a host of other conveniences to pacify the insecurities that this reversal instills. I'm going to suggest that most AFCs, most feminized, conditioned males, like and embrace the lonely old man myth because it is a buffer against potential rejection. Does that sound like a stretch? It shouldn't. When used from a feminized perspective, this myth is most certainly a shaming social convention with the latent function of getting men to commit to a feminine frame. You better change yourself soon, or your soulmate might pass you by, and you'll be lonely and destitute in your old age. That's the feminized use of the myth. However, the internalized AFC use of the myth is a buffer. This then becomes his rationale for settling for a substandard LTR or marriage. Better to marry a shrew than suffer loneliness. It's really a triple whammy. There's the feminine reinforced fear of solitude. Then, the self-reinforced expectation of maturity or doing the right thing. And finally, the use of it as a convenient retreat from rejection or potential rejection. And this is what I'm getting at when I refer to it as a buffer. Case example. I have a friend who is trapped in a passionless marriage with a woman who set the frame from day one. He'd like to come off as dominant with his male friends, but it's clear to most of our friends that his wife owns the frame of the marriage. Prior to meeting this girl, our friend was a serial monogamous branch swinger. The LTR girl he'd been with prior to her ran the show in much the same way for almost 5 years. When he was finally freeing himself from her, with a bit of my own help, he started to see the value of being single and independent and began dating non-exclusively for about a 3-month period. After meeting his now wife, he gradually tried to find suitable ways to withdraw and become exclusive. Knowing what our reaction would be in so swift a time frame, he began searching for all kinds of rationales to effect this, and settled on the myth of the lonely old man. This story was the classic one, where a guy shakes off his old ways of thinking about women and dating, and almost unplugs from the Matrix, but fails to kill his inner AFC and slides back into his old beta mentality once he'd secured another soulmate. Here was a guy who'd spent more than half of his 20s in a miserable This from a guy who'd only ever been single for 3 months of his life. It was his buffer. Of course, now he's resentful and pensive about his marriage and lives life vicariously through his single friends, while at the same time self-righteously scolds them for still being single. The myth of the lonely old man is a buffer against rejection. It's a hiding in relationships they're told they must constantly work to perfect because of the fear of potential rejection. They're preset in this idea while still single. They see it as a valid reason and a desirable goal. Get married quick, before it's too late. What's worse, L is unassailable. The foundation of the myth is associated with maturity. Who's going to tell you not